Alrighty, we're going to go over the basics of a residential listing agreement. So this is the document that allows me to list property for sale for you. And then from there, it goes into the MLS. So this is a sheet that kind of gives a basic overview of what's on there. Primarily, obviously, the listing price, the length of the contract. So how long is the maximum amount of time this listing will be seen in the MLS? I typically start between 4 and 6 months for that. Here, broker compensation, that is how much I will be being paid for this job. Right here, this buyer's broker compensation, that is no longer in the document at all. So we are no longer, as sellers, offering a buyer's agent any compensation for assisting in the sale of the property. We'll get into that more in a little bit, but basically, that agent is going to request it and it becomes another negotiation. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Items included and excluded in the sale, that may be things like any appliances, ring doorbells, or any other just, various things that may or may not stay at the property. Date to start marketing the property, that's when it will be seen in the MLS. Coming soon status means that it is seen in the MLS, but it is not available for actual in-person viewings. Active means people can come in, see the property. Additional items, date to present offers. We usually make that as they come in. Sometimes, like if you're going to be out of town for a week or you want to wait a while, we'll put a later date on there. And we put that in writing just so that it's clear for everybody. You, as the sellers, can decide whether or not you're going to review buyer's letters. And then we're going to also include if there will be a lockbox placed on the property and a for sale sign. Okay, so that's kind of my quick breakdown, but the actual document is here. And it also includes a bunch of other stuff. So this is how it's going to look when it comes to you through DocuSign or if you sign it on paper. Page 1 is always the agency relationship. This is a really important and helpful document because it outlines what all of our responsibilities are. So I've highlighted here what my responsibilities are, and then coming down, you'll see what the seller responsibilities are. Basically, we have a responsibility to be open and honest with each other, to share with each other what we know, and I have an obligation to you to work as your fiduciary. Okay, so lots of words here. And then here we get into the actual listing agreement. So it starts out with our date prepared at the top, exclusive right to sell. This is going to be your name because it's stating the seller is employing the broker. Keller Williams Pacific Estates is my broker, and it's under that entity that the sale will be facilitated. Coming down, you see it's kind of put out in this helpful chart. We're going to start with the listing period. We're going to go to A2, the listing price. That's the price that we're starting in the MLS with. So if you have a goal sale price, but we've decided on a marketing tactic of a different price, that different price is what you're going to see here. We may have a different conversation going on about what your goal is. And you may have an understanding that you're not going to accept an offer less than that goal, but this is just indicating what we're starting in the MLS, okay? And then coming down to section C, we talk about compensation. So the compensation to the seller's broker, that's my compensation here. And then when you go to C2, this is an additional compensation field that is for if a buyer were to come who is unrepresented. This is very rare. I actually haven't done that to this point. But in the case that there is an unrepresented buyer, I will charge an additional 1%. This will say 1 here because of the additional workload of facilitating their sale as well. Even though they're representing themselves, there's just a lot of paperwork that has to happen. So again, that's very rare, and we can talk about this in more detail. If there's any, other brokers in the picture, we list them here. So here's the included and excluded items. These are things if there's a solar system, any of that stuff, we're going to include that here. This will note my MLS here. And then additional just kind of information down here. Okay, so that's really the nuts and bolts of it. As you scroll down, it does give a little bit more detail on every single one of those items in that chart. So when you have any questions about something, of course, ask me, but also we can refer to this entire document where it does give more details. There also is a dispute resolution area here. So just so you're aware of that. And then down here will be the seller's signing. So this will be where you guys will sign. This is where I sign as your hired agent through my broker. Okay. So along with that comes the MLS addendum, multiple listing service. This explains what the MLS is, the benefits to you, public marketing and how that works. And then it also will give a field in here where we start the date. So right over here, we'll show like if we have a coming soon date or active date, whatever plan we've come up with, that date will come here if it's different than the date that we're signing all of these docs. Okay, then there's going to be a bunch of other stuff too that's important. And I want to highlight what it is so that as you may be kind of breezing through on DocuSign, clicking those prompts, you understand what it is that you're signing because, you know, I know how it can be on DocuSign where there's just a lot of papers. So this is a seller's advisory. This is an advisory to you as a property owner. The just kind of an introduction to the steps of selling in the state of California. Just a couple duties that you have, that I have, and it gives an opportunity for you to understand quick overview of some of these marketing considerations, some of the needs to disclose, things like that. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, of course, please ask me. But you know, just know there's some things we have certain disclosures that are part of every sale, and it indicates here like lead-based paint. We have to do a natural hazard disclosure. We have to get a full title report, things like that. Okay, so there's that there. The broker compensation advisory. This is newer since with the changes of how agents are compensated. So this is just outlining for you and as clear of language as the state could come up with how compensation is handled. Listing compensation, which is me, is fully negotiable. This outlines the optional additional compensation if buyer's unrepresented. And then this is a disclosure that the broker may represent both buyer and seller. You will know that before going into any kind of transaction because it will be disclosed to you by me. Okay. It's rare, to be honest with you, but just, you know, so that you know. And then when it comes to seller paying the buyer's broker compensation, the way this works is now in a purchase agreement, which serves as the offer for purchase, when they submit that over to me to review with you, it will include the price and certain terms that we want to make sure we understand. But it also is going to include how much they're asking you as the seller to pay the buyer's broker. The average that we're seeing in Orange County and Los Angeles County is between 2 and 3%. It varies quite a bit, and it is a negotiation. If I had to pick like a hard average to budget for, I would say about 2.5%. As we're budgeting for your cost of sale, that is the average request. Again, it's a request. You can say no. It may inhibit a buyer's ability to perform because they may not have that extra money on hand to pay their agent. Again, we'll get more into the weeds on that as we get there. There are some workarounds for buyers that can be advantageous to everybody. So, but for now, that's a quick overview. This is a disclosure that I may be representing more than one client at a time. This is the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory. We have the Consumer Privacy Act. And that'll be basically it. So that's going to be what comes over on all of your listing documents. And again, the bulk of what we're going to be working with is going to be found in these first 2 pages of the residential listing agreement, which I will fill out and send to you by DocuSign or print for you to sign in person. And most of these things will be decided well beforehand. But if it's something that you have any questions about, of course, please let me know.